Another Georgia bill up for consideration right now would make it a felony for protesters to block any street, sidewalk, or interstate. The Safe Communities Act of 2021 was introduced by a group of Senate Republicans earlier this week. Under the bill, offenders could face up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. In June, demonstrators blocked traffic on the downtown connector to protest the police shooting of Rayshard Brooks. Protesters were also arrested a few weeks ago when they again attempted to block the interstate after learning 2 officers' jobs were reinstated after tasing 2 college students during the George Floyd protest last summer. A civil service board said their dismissal didn't follow the proper procedure. The NAACP says this bill is an attack on the First Amendment.
This is an attempt to stifle protests, First Amendment rights. We call on these legislators who sponsor this legislation to really, calm down and listen to the pulse of the people and allow the process to work in which peaceful assembly is able to be received.
There would also be penalties for local governments who tell law enforcement officers not to intervene in protests. Also under the bill, any local government that cut law enforcement funding would have state funds cut. Today